Justice Hill and Kenyan Drake are running backs for the Baltimore Ravens, who have once added immediate impact. This begs the question, who is a better fantasy pick? Should I start Kenyan Drake or Justice Hill? In this video, I have brought to you the news in detail. Make sure you stick with me to the end so you don't miss any part of what I have for you. Without any further delay, let's get into it. Let's start with highlighting on the Ravens running back situation. The Ravens rank number 4 this season in rushing yards gained per game, and they are number 1 in the past 3 weeks. Last week against the Giants, Kenyan Drake ran for 119 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. J.K. Dobbins' carries were limited because of a knee injury, and after the game, Dobbins was placed on the IR. Dobbins was leading the team in rushing attempts, but Drake is not to have the backfield to himself, as one Ravens RB leaves to rejoin the team. Justice Hill, who missed weeks 5 and 6 with a hamstring injury, is cleared to play. And Gus Edwards, who tore his ACL last season, was taken off the PUP list. You might assume the Ravens pound the ball again and again to rack up rushing yards, but you'd be wrong. The Ravens only rank slightly above average, with 26.2 rushing plays per game, and that includes QB runs. They do excel at rushing efficiency. They are by far the number 1 team in rushing yards per attempt, both in the whole season and in the past 3 games. They are number 1 by a hair, nearly tied with the Browns in EPA per rushing play. From a fantasy points perspective, it wouldn't matter if the RB you start gains 80 yards on 8 carries or on 20 carries. If the Ravens are gaining yards, you can gain points. It wouldn't be a problem if Kenyan Drake and Justice Hill perfectly met their averages. 9 carries times 6 yards a carry is 54 yards. Add in a couple of catches or a touchdown, and you have a flex. But here's the problem. If Kenyan Drake and Justice Hill each have only half a dozen carries, each carry is more impactful. They have a greater chance of having an outlier game, which could be good or it could be bad. Players with high efficiency and low volume are riskier plays on a game-by-game basis than players with lower efficiency and higher volume. Next, let's talk about how Kenyan Drake is doing this season. Kenyan Drake has gained 184 yards on 31 carries. That's good for an average of 5.9 yards a carry, but those numbers are heavily influenced by his 119-yard game last week. In weeks 1, 2, and 5, he had 65 yards on 21 carries and was held under 3.0 yards per carry in his first 2 games. His current yards per carry figure is higher than it's been any season in his 7-year career. This is his first year in Baltimore, which has a better offensive line and a better system than the Dolphins and Raiders teams he played for the past 2 years. But Drake could be vulnerable to regressing towards his career average or his season average. Drake has not been used much in the passing game either. He has only been targeted 4 times and caught 3 for 24 yards. How about Justice Hill? How is he doing this season? Justice Hill has run for 125 yards on 19 carries. He has a similarly low involvement in the passing game, 4 catches on 4 targets for 19 yards. Hill is younger than Drake and has averaged more yards per carry than Drake has over the past 3 years, though with only 89 career carries, all while playing in the Ravens system. Jeff Zrebiec, the Ravens reporter for The Athletic, described Hill as the team's most explosive back early in the season. Who should I start for fantasy football? In weeks 1 and 2, the only 2 weeks both of them were active, Drake had 17 carries and Hill had 5 carries, though Hill had more snaps in week 2. 2022. There is the additional wild card of Gus Edwards. He may be transitioned slowly back into the rotation, given the severity of his injury and his time missed. But he tends to get carries in goal line situations, so his presence could deprive Drake or Hill of a touchdown. Despite the Ravens' high team rushing totals, few of their RBs have done much for fantasy teams. In fact, Drake's RB7 finish last week and Dobbins' RB10 finish in Week 4 were the only two times the Ravens have produced in RB1. Hill did turn in top 50 finishes twice, which could be good enough for flex. But given how Lamar Jackson accounts for so many carries, and the Ravens even use WRs like Devin Duvernay in the run game, it would be hard for them to produce multiple fantasy productive RBs. It would hardly be surprising if either Drake or Hill has an RB1 game. It would be somewhat surprising if both of them do. It is also possible to see them both having RB3 to 4 games. Drake and Hill are both low floor, high ceiling flex or RB2 options. Gus Edwards shouldn't factor into lineups this week, since we don't know what to expect of him in his first game back, but he could be a stash. Here is my verdict. Kenyan Drake will score more fantasy points than Justice Hill in 2022. Drake is currently on 27.3, while Hill has 15.0 points. In the coming weeks, Drake will likely take more snaps than Hill, so we are still determining how the lead will be cut. Next up, let's talk about Emmitt Smith, as he celebrates 20 years as NFL rushing king. Defensive tackle Bob Lilly will forever be Mr. Cowboy. He was the first ever draft pick in the history of the Dallas Cowboys franchise. He was the first player who spent his entire career with the Cowboys to be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he was the first player enshrined in the team's hallowed Ring of Honor. Roger Staubach will likely never relinquish his unofficial title as the most beloved player in franchise history, as the All-American Boy, Heisman Trophy winner, and former naval officer who quarterbacked the Cowboys to their first 2 Super Bowl teams before going into the Cowboys Ring of Honor and Pro Football Hall of Fame. But when it comes to the greatest player in franchise history, one name stands alone: Emmitt James Smith III. Smith's resume as the most decorated, celebrated, and accomplished player in Cowboys history has no equal. A former first-round pick in 1990 who became a foundational piece to 3 Super Bowl title teams in 1992, 1993, and 1995, before finishing his career as league's all-time leader rusher with a never-to-be-eclipsed 18,355 yards, and ascending to his rightful resting place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Ring of Honor. Smith is the only player in NFL history to ever win a Super Bowl championship, the NFL Most Valuable Player Award, the NFL Rushing Crown, and the Super Bowl Most Valuable Player Award, all in the same season, which he did in 1993. Arguments can be made, but there is only one correct answer about Smith's place with the Cowboys and his standing as one of the greatest running backs of all time. Consider this week as a subtle reminder when Smith celebrates the 20th anniversary of breaking Chicago Bears Hall of Famer Walter Payton's then rushing record of 16,726 yards with an 11-yard run against the Seattle Seahawks on October 27, 2002. Smith said that it makes you reflect. He explained that as he drove by the old Texas Stadium site with his daughter, she said, "Dad, isn't that where the old Cowboys Stadium was?" To which he replied, "That's where I broke the record 20 years ago." He further explained that his brother was 6 months old and he is now 20 in college, which is a clear indication that time flies and how we should appreciate every moment that we actually have with our loved ones and friends and family and so forth. And you know, he further explained to his daughter that he has always believed records are made to be broken, but to have something like this stand for 20 years is an amazing accomplishment. Smith will celebrate by going to dinner with his family, friends, and business partners on Friday. It's a moment and accomplishment that can never be diminished and likely won't ever be equaled. There are many backs who are bigger, stronger, and faster than Smith, who played at 5'9", 215 pounds, and ran the 40-yard dash in 4.6 seconds. But as former Cowboys Vice President Rich Dalrymple kept telling Smith as he crept closer to the record in the latter years of his career, keep chipping away. He thrived, endured, and sustained for 15 years seasons, including 13 with the Cowboys without suffering a major injury. Smith has known nothing but greatness since he started playing Pee Wee football in the Salvation Army Leagues in Pensacola. He finished his career at Escambia as the second leading rusher in high school football history. He became an All-American at the University of Florida. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. See you next time.